Hello and welcome to another Nickjitsu video. Today I'm going to be going over a kind of scale called the Hirajoshi scale, which is a Japanese scale. Although, as we'll find out, it's more of a tuning than a scale. I've derived some modes from it and all that kind of thing. The Hirajoshi actually comes from two Japanese scales, the Ritsu and the Ryo. The Ritsu is basically the shape 5 pentatonic, and Ryo comes from a song by Duran Duran. Initially it was quite hard to find out what exactly the Hirajoshi scale was. I had one of two options. I had this one, or this one. And I'm not sure which is which. I'm going to go for the first one because that seems to be the general consensus that that's the Hirajoshi scale. However, in doing a bit more delving, I found out that the Hirajoshi scale is actually a tuning that's used in Kyoto, Japanese Kyoto instruments. So the Japanese Kyoto, you can look them up online. You play with that hand, you pluck with that hand. It's like a big harp or big zither or something like that. You press down behind the bridges. It's kind of like playing like that, and you get your vibrato from there. So on to the Hirajoshi then, and I'm going to go for a Hirajoshi. I'm playing it like this. You can play it like this. And you can think of it as an Aeolian scale, but it's missing a fourth and it's missing a seventh. The Hirajoshi is basically Japanese pentatonics, so we'll name it the same as I named the other pentatonics, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we'll do it in Japanese. So we'll do it ichi, ich, ni, san, shi, go. Like that. Bet you didn't know I could speak Japanese. Hai onegaishimasu. Hirajoshi, ichi. So what you're playing here is you're playing on the E string, you're playing the 5th and the 7th. And then on the A string you're playing the 3rd and the 7th, and then the 3rd and the 7th again on the D, and then you're playing the 4th and the 5th on the G, and then the 5th and the 6th on the B, and then you're playing the 5th and the 7th. You actually don't have to play the 7th on the E, but you know, I like to do whatever I do on the top, on the bottom. Just like that. Hurrah! So for shape Ni, shape 2, we're going to play on the 7th and the 8th on the E string, 7th and the 8th on the A string, and then we're going to play the 7th, the 9th, and then the 7th, the 9th, and then the 10th on the D, and then on the J we're going to play the 9th and then the 10th. Roll our finger over to the 10th on the B, and then we're going to play the 7th on the E on the top string. That's Ni. And then each Ni San, number 3, we're going to play 8, and then 12, and then 8, then 12, and then on the D string we're going to play 9, 10, and then we're going to play 9 and 10 again, and then we're going to play 10 and 12 on the B, and then we're going to play 8 on the E, on the top E. There we go. And then finish it off with an E just for good luck. And there's a bit of finger rolling going on there. Like that. And now for Shi, we're going to stick up the dusty end of the neck here. And we're going to play 12 and 13. And then we're going to play 12, 14, 15 on the A. And then we're going to play 14, 15 on the D. And then we're going to play 14 on its own on the G. And then 12 and 13 on the B. And then 12. And then 13 if you want on the E. Like that. And the last one, go.
Oh, okay.
No, stay.
What?
Go. Stay. Go. It's the number 5. So we've got 13 on the E and then 17 on the E. And then we've got on the A string we've got 14, 15. And then the D string 14, 15. And then we've got 14 and 16 on the G. And then we're back to 13 and 17 on the B. And then 13 and 17, if you're feeling fruity, on the E. Like that. And then that brings you back to the start. So the other Hirajoshi shape is based on the Aeolian scale. And it's basically 5, 7 and 8 on the E string. Just 7 on its own on the D string. And then 4 and 5 on the G. 5 and 6 on the B. So you basically play on the E string, you're playing the 5th, 7th, 8th, like that. And it's no different. Like that. Although, it depends on what you're wanting to play. And in that lies a story. The track Nickjitsu vs Godzilla started life as just a simple heavy metal track. And a bit of a long story as to how it came about. I've done another video on that, but there's a drummer friend of mine who now plays with Philip Frankenhauser, very good blues band in Switzerland. Guy called Doc Spoons, Richard Spooner, and he asked me to write him a heavy metal track because he was doing some drum clinics. So I came up with this riff. Something like that. It wasn't really anything, it was just a riff. And when it came time to do the album, I put that whole song together and it just never quite took off. Have a listen. See what I mean? It's alright, but yeah, didn't really have much of a personality. It sounded like war, and I thought about samurai in war, and samurai, Japanese scales, etc, etc, and that's it. So decided to study Japanese music for about, I thought it would be about a week, but it was about 2 or 3 months in all, because I looked at taiko drumming, I looked at koto playing, shakuhachi, which is the flute, all the scales, listened to loads and loads of Japanese music. And as you know, if you've studied anything Japanese, like I studied Jiu-Jitsu and Aikido for over 20 years, spending 3 months on something is literally just glancing at the cover of the book, not even opening it. So what I did was I took the riff that I originally wrote, and it's kind of like a Phrygian type thing. You know, albeit in a funny kind of shape. And I just converted it into what I thought was the Hirajoshi. Because I thought when I first learned it, because I learned it from Wikipedia, the Hirajoshi was this. And that sounds a lot more Japanese to me. Like that. But it's really hard to play at high speed. See, I can play it, but it's not clear. So, again, going back to my past, one of the things I learned from, I say studying violin, I took violin lessons from this poor old woman in Dundee years and years and years ago. I phoned her up and said, oh, I'm having a bit of trouble with Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto in E minor. And she said, good grief, what grade are you? And I said, oh, I don't do grades, I just play what I want. And she said, okay, come along, 6 o'clock Tuesday. So I went up Blackness Road, Dundee, and knocked on her door. I forgot to tell her I didn't play violin. So I turned up with a little Marshall amp in one hand and a little blue triangular electric guitar in the other, long hair, leather jacket. Hello, I'm Nick, I'm here for your 6 o'clock. And she got the fright of her life. But bless her, she did teach me. She taught me a lot about, I only had 3 or 4 lessons, but what I learned was invaluable. Lots and lots of wee tricks. How to play the Sarasate stuff and how to get the energy of the string working for you, which I'll do in another video another time. But one of the things she taught me was about the flow of a phrase. If you're having difficulty playing something and you just can't get it fast enough or you can't get your fingers around it, refinger it. So if I take this, that's pretty hard to play up to speed. So I refinger it. So that's much easier to play. You see what I mean? Just kind of flows a little bit more. So one of the interesting things that you get from the Hirajoshi is when you start to harmonise it, you can't really harmonise it like a regular, for want of a better word, a Western scale. Because Japanese music, very similar to Indian music, doesn't quite work that way. You've got melody and you've got rhythm. You don't have melody, harmony and rhythm. So the melody is the harmony, kind of. From what I could work out, there's no hard and fast rules as far as harmonization goes. But it doesn't mean to say that you can't harmonize it. So if you're looking for easy to play triads, if you harmonize the Hirajoshi, then what you'll get is you'll just get, if you do it in A minor, you'll get the chord of A minor, and you'll get the chord of F. All the other chords are just a bit weird. So you'll be able to get an E sus4. You'll get a, you get something like an F sus sharp 4, and then you start getting all the weird ones. Things like that. Beautiful, beautiful chords. There's quite a lot of these. They're always good when you play them right in the bridge and you play them backwards. As far as naming these chords goes, it's kind of like an F with a flat 5 on both ends. And before you write in and say, oh, it could be a sharp 4, blah 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 blah,
Sharp 11.
I don't care. I treat chords like I treat my cooking. You name it after you eat. Easiest way to do it. If it sounds good, we could call it Fred, we could call it Yuma, we could call it anything we want. This chord shall forever be known as Udon.
And there was much rejoicing.
Part of the tune Nickjitsu versus Godzilla, I do this kind of... it's kind of like a very Phrygian sounding thing, but also with what's going on in the background, there's a kind of rhythm that just drones on the note of E, and you get this kind of idea. And again, there's no chords in there, but the whole feel it gives you, to me, is of Godzilla coming through the waves, coming up for a wee fight with me.
See you, Jimmy.
Who wins? You'll have to listen to the whole song. But all I'm doing is I'm trying to sustain as many notes as I can. It's very much like, when you play country music. You get that kind of... You get notes that ring together like a pedal steel guitar. That's the kind of thing I was going for. Again, it's the koto. So other licks that I do, like later on in the song, things like that, you try and let all the notes ring together sympathetically, so it sounds like you're actually playing a koto. So one of the things I did on the record to make the guitar sound more like a koto, people thought it was guitar synth, because I'm quite well known for playing guitar synth, and indeed all the album was done on regular guitar, guitar synth and bass. There's no other instruments used. So even the seagulls were played on guitar. So what I'm doing is I'm hitting the strings right at the bridge, like that, and giving it a little bit of a wiggle with the whammy bar, but whammy bar's backwards, and then just playing through the notes, and then that kind of thing. There's lots of other little tricks where you play notes from the scale, but you try and let as many ring out and ring together as possible, like I said. And then just using parts of the scale. I used a lot of right hand vibrato, but similar to kind of flamenco phrases when you get the the Paco de Lucia type thing. So I just used bits of that. I'm not sure if that's totally correct. And also, it helps if you bend the string just slightly out of tune. And what that does is that mimics. If you watch a koto player, they'll pluck the string and then press the string to get the vibrato. They're not always letting the string come back to its proper resting point. Therefore, it can be a bit sharp every now and again. So just another handy little tip to make your guitar sound more like a koto. There's the Eric Johnson technique. He does the opposite. He plays as close to the note as possible, which I did, but that was too impractical for playing chords. So, and having to go back here and then backwards and forwards and all that kind of thing, I didn't like that. So and it was also, it's a sharper sound that you get. Yeah. So a change of guitar. There's a reason for this. If I play a little bit of flute now, if I play something like that using guitar synth, two things: I'm using my fingers and not a pick, because it will stop me playing like a guitar player and playing guitar licks. And number two, you kind of get a little bit more connection with a note. I know it sounds weird and maybe a bit kind of hippie-ish, but you do connect better when you're using your fingers. And the other thing is that when you're playing some of the notes, I also want to be able to tap roughly about a fourth above the note. So I'll be playing an E in this case, and I'm going to be tapping an A, and it gives you that. So if I now try that on guitar and switch to synth off, you get a more authentic because that note A is different. It gives you a totally different inflection. I think it's really important not just to listen to the scales of a different type of music, but kind of absorb yourself a little bit in that style of music. You'll learn loads of little things about the phrasing that koto players use and shakuhachi players use. I hope you enjoyed that little jaunt into the world of the Hirajoshi scale, and I hope it yields some good things for you. It's not quite the Aeolian scale with notes missing. The missing notes make you really focus on what's there, and it's got quite a different sound to it and yields some quite interesting possibilities with the harmony in the scale. Are you going to end up sounding like Godzilla, Marty Friedman, Sugar Shikao? We don't know. Could even end up sounding like Pokemon. So hit the like button and the doodah and the thing with the bell and the whatever else you've got to hit or press nowadays. Be much appreciated. And don't forget the album Hyperreal's out on Bandcamp. I'll put a wee thing in the what's it. And from me, the birds and the bees, I couldn't get any Japanese beer. So I had to go with, well, they've got birds and bees in Japan, haven't they? So to all the birds and the bees in Japan, kanpai. See you on the next one. Sayonara. I wonder what other traditional Japanese folk music I know.